Hey everybody, figure out why the webcam isn't up here. There it is. So I just wanted to talk about the parts that we have selected here. Move this a little bit. Let's move this down here. Stop snapping. Gonna keep snapping. Whatever. I can fix that, but I'm too lazy to. So just wanted to talk about the parts that we have listed here in this build, but this build is basically the design or the idea of this build is for somebody that wants to start PC gaming but doesn't have, you know, $1,000+ to throw at a build right up front. So there are options out there to actually build the majority of the computer, or the entire computer, should I say, but utilize an APU instead of adding a graphics card, and that'll get you started so that you can game on it. It'll even play Warzone between 50 and 80 FPS. It'll flex dramatically through that, so it's not the greatest experience, but it will get you at least console level performance in some of today's top titles, including Warzone. So expect around 60 FPS average with this APU, but it's a Ryzen 5 5600G, and it is using the Vega 11 graphics on the chipset. So it's an APU, and this is the build out that I selected to give you probably the best possible performance, as well as giving you the ability to slap a video card in there later down the road. There's a couple things you could change here that you could plan for a better build or a bigger build later. Like one, the motherboard. This is really just the best bang for the buck board. Your Gigabyte B550M. It'll give you the best possible performance for $100, and you have a bunch of different options on there, like 4 slots of RAM, so you can add 2 more sticks of RAM later on. You can add a wireless card if you want later on, or you could buy a board with wireless on it, or you could buy a full ATX board that you can you know, put it in an ATX case and have many more options on the board itself. But this build is for the best bang for the buck, and this board that I selected isn't probably the absolute greatest for you know, expandability, but it's a great board to start with, and it's available on Amazon. So the idea is, if you're a person that is looking to build a computer but you don't have, you know, $1,000+ to shell out on the entire build, including the graphics card, then this is something you could start with, and then later down the road save up some more money and then put in a graphics card. And again, another piece that I would recommend planning a little better is your power supply. So this power supply can run up to, I'd say, a RX 5500 or a GTX 1660, and that's really the power supply's limits. So if you're building this build with the plan to go get a GTX 1660, this will work great. If you're planning to put like a RTX 3070, 3080 in there, this is not going to work. You're going to need a larger power supply, and I would recommend, when you're building it for the first time, to get the right size power supply for the video card that you're putting in there. That's definitely something I would recommend. So just keep that in mind when you're pricing this out. This is a $660 gaming computer that you could build now, start playing, and then also add a video card later. And that's the whole idea of this build. Got a nice case. This is a micro ATX case. This won't fit super long video cards in there, so just keep that in mind as well. So if you're gonna put an RTX 3080 in the build later on, you're definitely gonna want to start with a larger case. So it's all about planning the build and making sure all the right pieces are in the right place before you build it, and then later find out that you don't have the right part for something when you go to add your graphics card. But it will make it simple to add the card later down the road, and it's completely compatible. So this is a great processor to start with, and it has that Vega 11 APU power, so that you can actually start gaming on it without having to fork out, you know, a few $100 just for a video card right now. So again, great option to start with. You can find all of this on Amazon. So for those of us that don't have Micro Center or a Best Buy with computer components stocked, or I think Newegg has some pretty good options as well. They have this processor, but this is actually Micro Center and Amazon have pretty much the best price on this processor currently as of right now, which is September 4th. So this is what I would roll with. I even grabbed a upgraded cooler. This one's by Arius Game. This is the River 5. Gives you some addressable RGB, as well as 5 heat pipes on the tower cooler and a 120mm PWM fan. So it'll keep your CPU, which is also acting as your graphics card, nice and cool while you're gaming on it. Excuse me. I also selected a 1 terabyte M.2 SSD. This is a Gen 3. It's not the absolute greatest solid state drive, but it'll give you way better performance than a SATA 3 and some of the other lower tier M.2 drives. So it's got some pretty good read-write speeds, especially if you're just gaming. This is great, especially at this price point as well. Solid state drives really haven't been this low in price in a while, so I'm actually pretty impressed that Team Group has one listed at this price. But Team Group's been a trusted brand. For those of you that don't know Team Group, they've been around for a long time, and they have a lot of they've always had some pretty good products. But that's really the budget SSD, M.2 SSD drive that I would recommend. I wouldn't go outside of that realm in terms of unknown brands. This would be the brand that I would go with for the budget. And then I'm using XPG RAM. You'll see this a lot in pre-builds because they manufacture a lot of RAM, and they do it at a pretty good price. This is 3200 megahertz, 2 sticks of 8 gigs, total of 16 gigabytes, and this is a speed of CL16. It is 2020, but it's not the worst, but it's not the best. But it's a great set to start with, especially when you're on a budget, or if you're tight on a budget. It's a great set of RAM. It also has heat spreaders on the RAM itself, and this one that I chose is black. Kind of go with the theme of the build, which is mostly black. So it'll look nice as well. Alright, that's pretty much it on the parts that we're using. I guess I didn't really touch much on the case. The case itself, the idea for me anyway, is this is a budget build, and I went with a budget case that has some really sharp, good looking quality fans in it, and a lot of good airflow. This has the front mesh on the case itself, and it has 5 addressable RGB fans. These are not PWM fans, so they are only going to run at 1 speed, which is maybe the worst part about it. But I have built in this case several times, and the airflow it pushes through, even though it's running at 1 speed, is really good. It's pushing a lot of air through the system. So I don't really see that a problem unless you're really picky about noise. Then maybe this is not the right case for you because of the fans. You can also buy the case without the fans and then buy some different fans and put them in there. That is an option that they provide. But the case itself is a nice deep case. It's a little wide or wider than your traditional micro ATX case. You've got lots of space inside for a tower cooler, and then you've also got plenty of space on the other side, the back side, for cable management. And there's a couple different options for solid state drives, for SATA, extra storage, hard drives. Though I don't personally build with hard drives anymore. Those are a thing of the past, and I don't ever want to look at a hard drive again in my life. Data loss from hard drive or mechanical failure is a thing of the past. I don't do that anymore. And I mean, yeah, you've had SSDs fail as well, so there is still data loss potential on a solid state drive, but it's much more rare because you don't have moving parts inside of a drive. So, but anyway, that's the case I selected. If you watch the prices here, they will drop some pretty good sales right off the bat. I believe this is a 5% off. The cooler is the same price, and the power supply, which is a 500 watt 80 plus bronze with some black cables, definitely recommended. But again, if you're going with a bigger card, go with a bigger power supply later. So anyway, this has 10% off, I believe, as well right now on Amazon. So really great price. This is the absolute best bang for the buck, and that's what we're going for today. I'm going to shoot us over to the build table. Test. Hello? So I can get the microphone over here, but I'm trying to hit the microphone on the other side of the room. Test. Oh. Alright, I think we finally got the microphone sorted out here. I'm gonna pop on some of the light up here just so we have a little bit better lighting down here on top of the parts. And I'm just going to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to start with the motherboard, CPU, RAM, SSD, and the cooler itself, and then it'll be as simple as plopping this thing into the case along with the power supply. Not too shabby at all. It came with. Always try to grab the bottom of the board by metal plate bottom. I'm actually infamous gloves that always take forever to put on. I still haven't bought them. Actually, I have bigger ones, but they're black, and they just don't blend well with the black background that I already have going. We got our board, pop open real quick. This. I have a couple different tools that I use. Pretty standard. A medium size Phillips screwdriver. A little bit larger with a magnetic tip screwdriver, wire snips, and a small stubby Phillips screwdriver that I use. And I've got a sharp little flathead screwdriver that I use. And really, this is just used to cut. I hate using a knife. Sharp enough to cut through the tape. So if you want to save $30 on this build, you could use the actual cooler that comes with this. It is enough to at least get you started. So it does come with a cooler if you wanted to go that route and save $30. But I'm a big believer in that thing nice and cool, so I'm not going to use the stock cooler. We'll keep it cool, but I'm just this thing, the cooler that we picked, the River 5, is definitely and if you guys ever need any stock coolers for 500, because I don't even know why I continue to save them. I'm gonna go ahead and pop the seat out door, throw it in your hand. I usually just flip it right into your hand very gently. so the pins are facing up because we don't want to damage pins. But they are pins there, and you can damage them very easily. So the other thing is, on the bottom, you'll see a gold triangle right here on this corner, and it will have the Ryzen logo facing the RAM. You'll see Ryzen facing 6 of the RAM, but your gold triangle right here is going to be your top left corner where we're going to drop that in. It should just drop right in. You'll feel it kind of drop in and settle, and then you'll also put your finger on it and maybe feel it. It's not moving, so it's definitely in there for good, for sure. 100% solid. We'll just close that hammer lid, clicks in, we're good. That is your CPU installation. Now for the RAM, the XPG, 8 gigabytes times 2, 3200 megahertz, CL16, got the black heatsink on it, spreader. So it's definitely trying to find a good spot for this camera. Definitely a good set of RAM to start out with, especially with the price of RAM right now. Come in a tray like this, the flip over, pull out, and then you have your 2 sticks of RAM. We're going to put it in these gray slots. Always check your motherboard manual to find out which slots are the best for your RAM situation or your radio that you're working with. Slide it in after you clips out. Case this XPG have the label facing you, and it is notched. Stick of RAM is notched here in the middle. It's not quite the center or the middle. You'll notice that it can only go in one way. But you just line it up, don't apply pressure yet, verify that the notch is over the gap, and then you push down both right here. Push down, don't push to the side or side to side. You want to make sure you're applying vertical pressure to the stick. It slides right in, and then you'll hear it click in. Alright, that's the RAM. Last is the M.2 drive. Gigabyte does put screw for us. Then we're gonna cut the bag that the SSD came in. This is our M.2 SSD. Go ahead and pop that open. I usually just peel it and slide it out. So you can just slide it right out. Get rid of the cardboard, but then it's in this little plastic tray. You just push it or pop it out slowly, like so. This is going to be notched again. The notch right here. Right here on the side. I'm trying to give you a white background so you can see it. But it's notched right there. So it is only going to go in one way. You can't put it in upside down or backwards. M.2 spot. Put it in kind of on an angle. Right here. But it's actually on an angle there. You can push it down and all the way. Line it up with the stud. I still have the screw on my driver because I'll drop that screw. Put my coat. We're going to drop that screw in there. Tighten it. Don't need it necessarily super tight, so make sure You don't over tighten that because or bring it down piece of metal. Yep. Kind of squish that, so be careful. Great. Last piece that we have to do with the motherboard is the cooler, which is the River 5 that we're going to be working with today. This one's pretty easy, if I remember correctly, to install. Right off the bat, the box has a nice manual, which will show you how to install the cooler for each socket specific to your build. I'll probably reference that later. And then the box, inside of a box, has your fan and accessories. This box is going to be the fan itself, which is cool, nicely wrapped in a piece of hard plastic with direction airflow. Direction the airflow goes on the fan. But for those of us who do know already, your airflow is going to go this way. So this side's pulling air in, this side pushing air out. Mount this in front of the RAM on the tower cooler, so that's pulling air from across the front of the RAM, fresh air from the front of the computer, to push the air to the back cooler, and the back fan to the rear, for it to be exhausted. So that is the direction of the fan. But it's kind of cool that they put that picture there to help identify that. But underneath this piece of cardboard flap here, you'll find additional pieces, installation bracket, and then a small box containing all your screws. Apparently, I'm gonna butcher while I open it. We've got our nice little fan clips. Comes with a total of 4, so you can put another fan on the back side of the cooler if you wanted to. You got your bags of screws, thermal paste, which already these will be used. Then we have our brackets, one listed for AMD, and the one listed for Intel. Each of them have different slots on each of the brackets for different types of LGA cell sockets or AND socket types. Don't know that this is exactly. I don't think this one is compatible with your Threadripper socket, your 04 socket. In fact, I know. So don't plan to use Threadripper to review itself on the. But again, they emphasize the position of the airflow and how important it is to have the airflow and which direction to put the cooler, which is exactly how we're going to be installing it. But I like the fact that they take the time to emphasize the importance of putting this correctly. I've seen a lot of people call these kind of funny. These types of but actual cooler, it's got a nice black finish to it, so it's going to look pretty cool. Like it. Box out of the way and I need it. And I'm going to reference the instructions really quick. It's been a minute since the last time I installed this, and I install a lot of coolers. I want to make sure I'm doing it right in front of you guys. Don't want to tell you to do something the wrong way. So we are not going to be using the backplate on the motherboard currently. We're going to be using the backplate that they provided. It was pretty easy. The nice backplate that they provided here. If I can get it out of the back. Guy right here. Got one that's listed as, or one side that's listed as AMD. and then another side that's listed as Intel right here. Little finish dents. We're going to be using the AMD side, and we're going to be placing the studs through these screws here, or through these holes, which is located in this bag. Paste, thermal paste applicator that we're not. Save a few seconds. Okay. Then there should be a little black washer, so to speak, bag. We're going to be using those. You know, you keep checking out my hair. If I look down, I don't know really like what to do about that. I always look down, and then you see my hair. Anyway, got this bracket. It looks like I just want to make sure we're going side hole. So got a couple different options here. This side is L. This side right here is your AMD. AMD. You got a wider socket, or I'm sorry, a skinnier socket. You got your AM4 socket. So every single. We're gonna put that in there, or put the stud through there. Grab one of these plastic washers, slide it through the other side. Hold stud onto the plate, back plate here. Nice and easy. That all the way around. Also, the stud can twist. Has a specific shape at the bottom to fit the hole very nicely. You make the hole grooved correctly, or you'll have a gap. I don't want the gap. That sounds the wrong thing. Kind of doing this on all of them here. That we have that go. We're gonna take off the old stock plate and brackets. We're not going to. Got a dry throat. Alright, so that's ready to go. Let's go ahead and take these stock brackets off the socket. I like to use my little stubby screwdriver for this. Gives me a lot better control at the tip. And it's quick. I can pretty much do this one-handed and not worry about my screwdriver popping off and slamming into my motherboard. I have more control over the screwdriver. But you take off these two screws and you can pull one bracket off. And then we're going to take the other set of two screws here off. Speed. There we go. We got both brackets, all four screws done. Lift the motherboard up. You'll find the bracket just stable. That's your metal bracket. I would recommend saving these brackets, these screws, and the plate, because you will need that in the future if you purchase, for example, a Corsair AIO, it might actually use that. So definitely save those brackets, that plate. But this bracket here, I forgot one more step. Got me adding this little piece of insulation as tape on one side. Peel this real quick. Gloves on. They wanted this board or on this plate board. Oh, goodness. Between the motherboard and the metal of the plate, so you have that here through the holes on the board. We have all 4 pegs sticking right through the board, ready to go. The next piece is the little tall black spacers. These things are going to go on each of the studs. All right. Now, the last thing we need is our AMD brackets. Our little nuts. Been waiting to use. So there's really one way that you can put this on, so you can't really mess this up. See on the back that it has a little divot, a hole here, center hole. That's going to be facing down. The divot in is going to be facing up, so the divot out, facing down, facing up, up. I know there's 2 different sizes here. Holes. Device here. It's going to be the inner one, like it was the inner one outside on the back plate. Really, like I said, it's only up. Grab all 4 of these little tiny nuts. They're little thumb nuts. Phillips head. Make sure Phillips head is facing up. That's brackets. And then I'm going to grab my Phillips screwdriver and just start screwing these in. So they're pretty snug. Have to be like super tight where it's flexing the board or anything. But tight enough so that they're not going to break the board. I think it would be very difficult to over tighten these. They're not really meant to be. All right, so that is all those pieces. I'm gonna grab bags here, parts in there, save. And put this out of the way here. Okay, the last piece is applying your thermal paste, making sure you remove from the bottom of the bottom of the heatsink. Kind of a weird. I've just never before, but yeah, it looks like all it is like a oil from the factory. But go. We got that plastic vector, whatever you want to call it, peeled off, and all we're going to do is thermal paste. So if you don't have any other thermal paste or you didn't plan ahead, this stuff is decent enough to use. Say it's good enough for a year if you need. But we don't do that here. We use thermal grizzly. All we use here. I like to do pattern, shallow X, so not really reaching to the absolute edge. See there? I'll bring it up to the camera here and just put it on. But I didn't make the X go all the way to the edge of the CPU. I kind of just left it, left a gap between thermal paste and the edge of the CPU. Apply pressure. This stuff is just flatten and evenly spread out. Now the next step, to install the heatsink. I like to install it where the logo is facing the back of the computer. I just better. But I guess that's your preference. But all you got to do, make sure you peel that plastic thing off the bottom of the heat. Are ready to line it up. Got to mention these screws can move out a little bit, slide out, apply a little pressure on it. Go. I'm going to take my tall Phillips driver, apply a little pressure on one side, apply a little pressure on the other side, back and forth till we get it tight. Way I'm evenly applying pressure on the not damage the socket or go. Now we have the heatsink installed on the motherboard. I can actually lift up the entire thing from pretty much know that's secure. So the next step is to install the fan. You've got your PWM connection, have your 5-volt addressable RGB connection here. What's nice about this one is that it's taken up a header, has another male end here that you can attach something else to their addressable RGB header, unless you have a splitter or a hub or something. But in this case, we're not really too worried about that. Motherboard does have 2 addressable RGB headers, and we only have 2 addressable RGB items board, which is fans in the case from a hub, the this fan for those else is not using it. I'm gonna undo those twist ties on wires, stuff those in the back of the case. Nice addressable RGB at the top there. See, got your addressable RGB here. 3-pin 5-volt WMCP fan here. They're both labeled on the motherboard. If you're having trouble finding them, reference your motherboard manual. Tell you where the headers are. Now again, airflow is here, like the sticker said on the box, but you want the airflow coming in this way, pushing out that way. So it's pushing through. Grab our little metal clips. So these metal clips here, they're just grab the bottom of the hole itself. So onto the heatsink. Relatively. I got one started here. grab next one. Same thing. Relatively easy. I promise, it's actually pretty. There we go. We got it. Pull it over the side of the fins. Show you here, close up. So, see, connecting to this hole, bottom of the fan, and it's grabbing the lip of the. That's how it snaps into place. Using one on each side, that's how it holds it in place. Right, that's that. So the motherboard, CPU, heatsink, RAM, the SSD in it. That's all set, ready to go. Move this out of the way real quick. Our next step is going to be our motherboard into the case. You saw earlier in the video, it's the MK7 by Musetex. Has 5 addressable RGB fans already built into the case, ready to go, mounted, which saves a ton of time in the build. Hey Carol, how's it going? Grandma lands on your street. But these are addressable RGB fans built right into the case. So as a system integrator, this saves me a whole bunch of time. So I'm a big fan of the case, and the fans push a lot of air, and you can control it using software in the motherboard. Go ahead and get this opened up. We can start mounting this motherboard, get the power supply in there, and we're pretty much done. Not a lot to it. Very easy build for anybody that is looking to get started on a gaming PC. Very good experience for $600. And then you do have the option later to upgrade your video card easily. Fighting with me. Struggling with this handle. Deal with it later. Anyway, it's a door on the case itself, so it can swing open. Magnetic up here, and you can actually pull the door off, which I just did. Now we have access to the case here. That it's pretty empty. Just gotta fill it out by power supply. I'm actually gonna break this twist tie off the back so we can get the screws. That was just twisted on. Gonna give us the screws for mounting the motherboard. Important. Right. So I like to lay it down here, and then I'll grab my back plate or IO shield, whatever you want to call it. And then we're going to mount that to the back here. And if you have ever done a build before and forgot this, just aesthetics does actually help airflow. Recommend putting this in. If you forgot it, I can do it. Also keeps the dust out of your system. Gosh. Maybe it's not worth it. I'm just struggling today. The deal is here. For a minute there, I thought the universe was against me. Alright, we got that installed finally down here. We're ready to mount this motherboard. We just want to make sure that the studs are all in the right place for the mic. Like we're missing studs. One here in this top corner and this here. Other than that, I believe they are all in this correct locations. Grab the studs out of the pile of screws that we opened up just a minute ago from the case. Started. Little socket. You can also use pliers if you have to, just don't scratch your case. Little socket to finish screwing it into the back. You want these tight, but don't do it too tight because it is sheet metal that you're screwing it into. Very easily strip the hole. Careful. Great. We're ready for the motherboard itself. There you got this top fan case. Yep. Sure. Cleared the fan wire on the back. Good. There's a few screws, so it does take a few. Take your time. Make sure you're threading them in smoothly. If you're struggling with threading these, you're using a screw or down an angle. Good thread in. Screw. Got a little lip to it. Flat, small, very fine thread. Pretty much the same screw every single case, except for Thermaltake and ZXT. And ZXT has to be fancy and use their own screw. Why? Ew. Last screw. Perfect. There. Now we got the motherboard installed into the case. One thing I'm going to do real quick is pull those wires for the CPU fan, also the through the top hole back here behind. I don't know. Squeezing in there. Grab them. Pull the excess wire through, so it's not floating around. Pulled in the back, and it's out of the way. It's going to look a lot cleaner. Wires aren't. Pull those away. I'm going to rerun addressable RGB wire actually through the back of the case, side hole, like it's going to. Ran connection here, that addressable RGB through this hole right here. But it was run through the top hole up there, around the back, back through this hole, and that gave us a much cleaner look. So roll with that. All right, next step is to get all the front panel connections plugged into the motherboard. So on this case, you're going to have your USB 3 front panel audio power buttons, as well as addressable RGB for going to kind of run these cables, go, flip it over, and plug in. Probably the boring part of the. I don't blame them. Gotta have kind of have a pretty good idea where everything goes already. So board is a little bit different, but for the most part, they're out. We got them all pulled through in the right places. We got this USB 3.0 cable. Nice big blue one. Only be plugged in one way. Motherboard header that's labeled USB 3.0. Got a notch on the front. Plug it in one. The front panel is going to be pretty much, it'll be listed on in your motherboard menu. But you'll have your hard drive LED, your LED, power switch, and your reset switch. These are going to pins each. Best way I can tell you to do this is motherboard manual. Follow diagram. Best way to do this. Sitting here, not probably helping you. But the best way to do it is just go look up your, and each motherboard can be different as well, so I don't want to tell somebody not be right. So look up your motherboard manual, follow that down. But for the most part, the top, almost every single motherboard is now. So you'll find your front panel connections, and you'll have a positive and a negative on. Now that positive and that negative need to be correct, or lights won't correctly, LEDs won't play correctly. But it should be positive to positive, negative to negative, and we'll find the diagram in your board to help you. But for the most part, it's power LED, top left pins, bottom left to hard drive LED, or next two pins over your reset switch. Of that is your power switch. That's really all it is. Plugging those in. Next one we have is our RGB hub in the back for the fans case. We're going to connect these to the header, RGB header, 5 volt adjustable RGB header here on the bottom of the motherboard. It's a loud snapping sound. It's nice and soft. Then we're going to plug in our front panel audio connection, microphone, headset, front of the case. Go. All those plugged in. Now, the last piece puzzle is our power supply. Quick here, Jim. Up a little bit. Before we actually, it'll make it easier to run the wires. We'll be finishing up, cleaning these wires a little bit later. Alright, so now we're going to just pop open our power supply, get this thing mounted real quick, and we are pretty much done. Not bad, it's a very easy build. Just undoing all the twist ties and got your wires ready. Gonna slide it in. Make sure your fan on your power supply is facing the bottom of the case. Do not put your fan up, because you will suffocate your power supply. See it? Problems in the future. And down. And note, if you are putting your computer on carpet, don't do that, especially if your power supply is at the bottom of the case and is facing down. are suffocating your power supply. Piece of wood under there. Computer on top of a piece. Have it on carpet. Highly recommended. Very quick, very easy. Paint it black. Cut it to exactly the same case. Notice. Really want to look cool. You go on Amazon and buy some RGB strips. Side or the bottom. RGB pedestal. But at least aren't suffocating power supply. This is only going to be 3 simple connections for this build with this case and board, etc. You have your 24 pin that you're going to need. Actually, going to sort through these quick. So you're going to have your 24 pin. Going to go through this connection here. I'm just going to send it through the hole here. Next one is going to be your CPU. Going to be labeled CPU. Going to have 8 pins. There you go. Okay. So 8-pin CPU is going to run up here, top corner. Probably going to be our trickiest power supply. That plugged in. Going to be fighting with a tower cooler that's already in there. And the last connection that we're going to need is SATA for the hub built into this. But I'm actually going to last here. Grab these cables. Grab the Velcro that came with the power supply. Velcro these extra cables. Stuff it here on the bottom. We have our SATA connection for RGB hub. There it is. Right in. Alright, so now that we got those cables pushed through those holes, we can flip this over comfortably. Plug in our 24 pin. It only plugs in one way. If you feel you got a lip outside of the motherboard of your 24 pin, got a little clip. 24 pin. Clip goes to the left. Hear it kind of click in, or you can look at it, make sure it's flush. Our last connection here is going to be, again, the most difficult. Our 8-pin CPU. Clip should be facing the top of the motherboard. One. Again, push it in. Got it nice and oh. Then we're going to flip this back over. Get some zip ties out. Have any twist ties that came with the build, with the parts. Recommendation. Keep it clean, organized. Nice practice. Usually with this hub, I'll take this, because I like to have access to it. Really stuff it in. Okay. Just because I'm not a big fan of things sticking to the case per se. Done it before, but if I can avoid it, well, oh, you know what? Double-sided phone popper, and just the only thing I would recommend is put a SATA SSD here or a hard drive here. Don't put this here. Whatever. No. Fine. Rest we're just takes a few minutes to do build so much better. Usually always a rat nest down here at the bottom. Not like that as of maintenance. If you ever have to get in there, fighting with zip side stuff. Rat nest in the bottom is acceptable. You have a power supply. Sending it with the cables already plugged in, and so they don't lost. But sorry. Great. One. Guys are probably still all wires in them. They work. Worry about them. Then we use wire snips or scissors or to cut these in. There we go. Nice and easy. I'm going to take this back plate, put it away, put all the screws into a bag. Hey Travis, sorry I missed your like, but thank you for the like, I appreciate that. Carol, thank you for the like as well. Much appreciated. Grandma likes my stream. That's good. Alright, and we're going to get this thing fired up. See what it looks like on the other side, right? Well, get the doors on, panels. take a quick look at the wires, make sure they're clean still. Quick, clean build. Our door. No, let's keep it off so you can see it. Put that on there and have it reflect a bunch of light. Tons of years. 550. But there you guys go. I don't know how well it's actually capturing the light. Looks like it's okay. There's our front panel. Nice mesh. Your addressable RGB. Got a good solid post, so we're all set. So yeah, we're using the APU in this build again. Next step, probably I'll make a video later, drop it, not a live video. So much plugging in, connecting, finagling. I just don't have the right equipment for it to do it live. But yeah, the benchmarks would be the next step to show you guys the benchmarks. But I mean, there's a lot of links out there already on YouTube with people showing the performance of this thing. So just as an idea, the most popular game out there is probably Warzone right now, and you'll get about 60 FPS with this. And again, it was about $660 before tax. So I mean, it's a nice build for $660. That'll get you started, start playing games, you know, get comfortable. Maybe you don't like PC, or you find out you don't like PC. At least now it's a disco party office computer that you can hand out to somebody. Or it's not a huge investment. Point. You can always, again, upgrade, add a video card later. Power supply has PCIe Express connections. You got the PCIe slot, so all you gotta do, literally, is buy the right graphics card for the build, slap it in there, plug it in, done. Done. All done. So, nothing super special about this build outside of it's $660 in September of 2021, and a $660 gaming 2021 is pretty damn good. So if you're tight on a budget, I would recommend this option to start. Gets you started, and it allows you to play your games, allows you to, just get started, and then a couple weeks from now, you got some more money for a video card. Grab the video card, slap it in there, boost your performance by 25, 30, 40%. So it's nice build. Nice build to start with. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this video up. If you ever have any questions, or if you want to get some of these parts, or if you want a build kit to follow the video, I can do all that. Or if you want it built, shipped, do all that. So, anyway, thanks guys for tuning in. Have a good Saturday. I might be jumping on Warzone a little bit later here. So maybe you can catch me on play some Warzone with me. I'm always down to play with some new people. Thanks guys. Have a good weekend. Labor Day weekend too. Have a good Labor Day weekend.